Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the October 2023 Santa Cruz County Board of Education to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Trustee Acosta. Trustee Alta.
Here.
Trustee Nichols.
Here.
Trustee Roth.
Here.
Trustee Sanchez.
Here.
President Van Allen.
Here. Thank you. I'd now like to have everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Superintendent Sabah.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Trustees, may I have a motion?
To approve the agenda.
Motion by Nichols. Second by Alto. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously of all present. Now is the time for public comment on items that are not on today's agenda. And you have 3 minutes, and like it if you fill out the little blue slip over on the side and hand it to the clerk. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to address the board on items not on today's agenda? Thank you. Seeing none, we will move on. We are now at a very special moment for this board. We are appointing a member to replace a retired member, and we're also making a historic move to appoint our first student trustee. So I would like to ask the new board member appointee, Edward Estrada, to come forward, and I will swear you in with Dr. Sabah's help. Okay, so just raise your right hand. I could hold them. Yeah, you could hold them. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay, good. Please repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Edward Estrada, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
So please come up and take your place, Edward. We're about to take a step that is a first for this board. It's not unique in Santa Cruz County, but it is part of a trend that we have been trying to encourage for a long time, which is the addition of student trustees to school boards. And this will be the first time that we've done this at the Santa Cruz County Board of Education. And I want to make a little comment before we do this, which is that this board and the County Office of Education, and in general, the school districts in Santa Cruz County, really put students first. We care so much about the lives, the health, the learning, and the futures of the students of this county. And one of the things that we do to make sure that we're doing that right is to encourage student voices to show up in every context, in the schools, outside the schools, and at board meetings. And there is one person who has done more than anyone else to promote this idea of honoring and respecting and elevating student voices, and that is our County Superintendent of Education, Dr. Faris Sabah. So in honor of this being the first time this board is adding a student trustee, the board and I would be greatly honored if, rather than me swearing in our new trustee, that Dr. Sabah be the one who officiates at that. And he is among the highest elected officials in our county and is an outstanding leader in education and in social justice for our communities. And so I would like to ask Dr. Sabat to officiate for this part. He's wired.
Wired for sound. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is very, as President Van Allen has mentioned, this is a very special moment for us. You know, the why of education and the why of the County Office of Education is students. And having student voice as part of the decision-making process is absolutely fundamental. And so we're so excited that the board has made this change, has made this addition. I believe that when I think about what is foundational to everything that we do here, I think by every decision that this board makes and every decision that we make as the County Office of Education is with a focus on students. And so it just seems so right and appropriate for us to have students represented here with us. And while we undertook this process to search for a student that could represent all the students of Santa Cruz County, to speak up, to share their concerns, their ideas, their solutions for the future and for the betterment of the students in our county. I also would like to thank the parents of Oscar Alvarez, and I'm going to speak in Spanish a little bit to make sure that I'm communicating effectively here. Me gustaría agradecer la presencia también de los padres de Oscar Alvarez. Mr. and Mrs. Alvarez and Oscar's sister are here to celebrate with us. And so let's give them a round of applause and thank them for their support. Un agradecimiento a los padres. Gracias por estar aquí. Gracias por su apoyo. Oscar, if you can join me, please. Mr. Alvarez. Before we get started, Oscar, I just want to thank you for this big step that you're taking, both for yourself personally, and I think this is going to be an exciting opportunity for you. But really, this is a huge, huge opportunity for us to learn from you, to hear your voice, and to be able for you to help remind us about the importance of students and everything we do and every decision that we make. So, Oscar, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Oscar Alvarez,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully
that I will and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which
upon which
I am about to enter.
I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Me gustaría pedir la presencia de la familia de Oscar que nos pueden acompañar para una foto. Could I ask the family to please join us for a picture? Gracias y felicidades. Oscar en el centro, por favor.
And one more right here.
Thank you. Okay, Oscar, if you can come on in for a sec. I would also like to take a moment to thank the presence of a leader who has been in our community for a long, long time, Cynthia Matthews, who has been an exceptional leader, a voice that we've heard in every aspect of decision-making in our city and in our county. Thank you so much for being here, Cynthia Matthews. And I'd also like to thank Mom, the mother of Edward Estrada. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can I have your name?
Angela.
Angela. And thank you so much for being here to support Edward.
Thank you.
Round of applause for Angela.
I want to add one more little thing, which is there's a lot of special people in this office, and one of them who has helped our students move ahead a lot is Andres Ortiz, who's here with us today. Thank you. Right, trustees. We are now to the consent agenda, and I'd like to ask if anybody has anything that they wanted to vote on or separately or comment on the consent agenda. Otherwise, I'd like to get them.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda and the second.
I'll second that.
Motion by Nichols, second by Roth. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now to item 7, correspondence. Is there any correspondence besides what is in the agenda?
There's no additional correspondence with President Van Allen.
Okay, we are now to section 8 of our agenda. This is reports, discussions, and presentations. And our first one is 8.1, the outdoor science school update. And I'd like to ask Dr. Meeker to introduce this.
Thank you, President Van Allen. It's my pleasure to bring up to the board Heather McDougall-Malloy, who is the Outdoor Science School Director. I've had the pleasure of visiting with Heather this year with her brand new team, and just really appreciate the work that she does every year to support students across our county and beyond. So I'll turn it over to Heather to provide this update.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the time that you are taking to allow us to showcase our outdoor science school program. So I'm going to invite up the program coordinator, Jamie Langley. As the director, I've been here for, this is my 19th year running this program. Jamie far surpasses my time and experience in outdoor school. She was a 5th grader at outdoor school a long time ago.
I was a 6th grader, actually.
6th grader, a long time ago. She was a cabin leader, volunteer when she was in high school. And then soon after that, she began working at the outdoor science school in between college classes and is now in her 21st year. Working with our program. So fantastic example of what we strive to do, which is bring students up within our community to be a part of our program to give back to the youth who come to see us. So Jamie's going to talk a little bit about some of the really important things that we do as well. So, quick question, by show of hands, how many of you have been to outdoor science school before? As a student? Yeah.
Nice daughters.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, how many of you have had siblings or cousins or children who've been to outdoor science school before? All right, great. So we've got a wide scope of experience. So I forgot to say in the earlier slide that we are in our 50th year of programming, consistent. Yes, even through COVID, we have been able to maintain some type of programming. And that's definitely something to celebrate. So we're thinking about what we'll do for a party. We don't have all the info yet, but we'll invite you, I promise. Next slide. And our location, if you've been, a lot of you have been, is at the Koinonia Conference Grounds, which is about 5 miles north of the Corralitos Market, famous for its sausages. If you're a meat eater, I recommend. And we're just located, nestled in the Redwood Forest. A lot of folks come up to our campus and say, this is an oasis. I thought I was in the middle of nowhere. And you can see a picture of our beautiful campus there. Next. So we serve 80 different schools, from Colfax near Tahoe all the way down to San Luis Obispo. The bulk of our schools are in the South Bay area, as you can see. But we have a large program that has grown over the time that I've been here. When I started, we served about 33,800 students. Next slide. And this year we have 5,500 5th and 6th graders that are enrolled to attend from these 8 different counties. We have grown to the point, in fact, because we lease our site at the Queen Anne's Conference Grounds, that we can't grow any further. And so we've created a wait list for students who would, schools that would like to join our program, but we can't fit them. So, oh, and then the slide back, the students that they come to our program with their classmates and their teachers. So it's like a big field trip. And they live on campus for 4 or 5 days and have all kinds of adventures. Next. We also have our high school leadership program, which is one of my favorite parts. I mean, I can't pick a favorite about what we do, but we serve almost 600 high school students a year. They come regionally and they come early for training with our cabin leader coordinator. They act as cabin leaders. And so they are leading the younger students from place to place, reminding them what they need, helping them get ready, being a mentor for them. And it really is amazing to watch their growth. We have a sort of a rubric process that we help them see how they can grow and where they're growing. And one of my favorite things to hear on Friday, after the younger students leave, we do a debrief with our high school volunteers. And sometimes they'll say, now I know why my parents are the way they are. That's a win, I think. Next. So there's so many things we can do. I joked with Berenice, I said, can we have the board meeting up there? Because I want y'all to see what we do. And of course, she explained why that's not possible. But I would love to individually invite you to come up at any time. Contact me. We would love to have you and be so proud to have you up there. But Jamie's going to talk a little bit about what we exemplify, what we stand for, what our program is all about.
So we do a lot of community building at Outdoor School when we have multiple schools that attend the same week. So some weeks we have 5 schools, some weeks 2 schools. And when they arrive on our campus, they're all treated exactly the same, regardless of where they come from, and they all become Outdoor Science School students. And so a unique thing that happens there is we are breaking down neighborhood barriers and different things that prevent different cultures from meeting each other and different students from meeting one another, and they get to live in the same cabin for a week and get to know new people and build that community all week long. And all the learning and the emotional learning that comes from being away from home and being with new and old friends and growing connections in that way. Slide. The students get to explore nature using science practices. So we have a wonderful classroom that has no walls and no desks, but we have lots of redwood trees and the animals of the redwood forest. So you can see our students here, they are touching some rough-skinned newts where they get to interact with the newt and doing a stream study at the top where they're checking out the water quality and what insects live in the creek. And it's all, our curriculum is all aligned with the next generation science standards. Next slide. There's a lot of adventure and independence, the adventure of going away from home and living without your family for 3 nights and 4 days. One of the biggest adventures, or something the students really love, is going on the ropes course. They each get to have an afternoon where they try our ropes course out. It's a nice beginner course and they tend to really enjoy that. And a lot of independence comes from that. A lot of our students, it's the first time they've stayed away from home and they've been without the comforts of their house or without their family support. And so learning how to get along and cope and be independent in their own way. And with that, there's so much personal growth and responsibility throughout the week. The students are responsible for getting their selves ready. They clean their cabins. They help us set up the dining room. They help bring the food to their tables. And so they really get to try on some adult-like tasks and some ways that they're growing in their independence and the connections that they have. Our classroom teachers always come back to us and tell us all the changes that they've seen in their students when they return, as do the families when their children return to them. They see how they're a little more mature and they're able to do different things, and they've overcome lots of great challenges through their week at Outdoor School.
So I think one of the most important things we do is we provide an immersive experience where the students are connecting daily, several days in a row, with the natural world. And when we think about what we need to do as people, as a society, as a planet, to survive through climate change and to combat climate change, I firmly believe that connection first is one of the most important things that we can do so that students, as they grow into high school and into adulthood, they have something meaningful inside of them connected to the natural world and more motivation to learn about climate change, to understand it, and to vote in ways that are beneficial. So what's next? Right now, we're really moving and grooving. We're like fully booked. We're going to continue to do this, provide the high quality outdoor education programming for another 50 years. I probably only got about 15 left, but I'm sure the program will go beyond me. We'll probably figure out a way to celebrate because that's important. And something I wanted to drop in your ears as a little earworm is my long-term dream. And I think what could be all of our long-term dream is to own our own outdoor science school campus. It's a high initial investment, and it does lead to long-term reduction in costs in several different ways. Being able to run weekend programs with conference groups, being able to do summer camp programs helps to offset the tuition that continues to go up for our outdoor science school. We are fee-based, and so our program is run on the tuition that the students pay to participate. There are lots of COEs, LEAs, COEs and districts that have outdoor schools with sites that they own. And so that is the idea that I'd like to leave you with. It's not something that moves quickly, but I've got about 15 more years, something that I'm hoping to maybe make progress in before I move on in life. Next. Thank you for being here, and both Jamie and I are here for any questions you may have about our program.
Thank you. Trustees, questions or comments? Trustee Alto.
I just have a quick comment. I actually feel like outdoor education science camp is what sparked my love for education. I went as a 5th grader. I was a cabin leader literally 10 times, and then I went as a 5th grade teacher. So I love outdoor school, and I'd love to visit sometime. But I just wanted to mostly say thank you. It was really nice to see this update, and it's really like a rite of passage for 5th graders and 6th graders. And so, yeah, thank you for all your hard work, and I am excited to get on campus soon.
Just let me know.
Yes.
Can't wait to see you.
Anybody else?
Who does own the camp?
The site. So we lease the Koinonia Conference Grounds, which means we enter into an MOU with them each year, and it's owned by a church board.
And is there any possibility
That they would sell it?
I know they're expensive, Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
But is there any conversation with them?
With Camp Koinonia?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Camp Koinonia is interested in selling. However, the idea of owning our own property for outdoor science school is one we've discussed in the past, and it is something we've looked into. But it would probably have to be at a different location.
We looked way back, it was up near Big Basin, was,
Camp Hammer. Yeah.
yeah.
And that was also leased. It wasn't owned.
I'm all for.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a big process. There's finding space. There's obviously the cost is large. There are lots of ways that we can creatively find money. We have a foundation that's sleeping right now, but we can wake that back up. But that's great. And I think it's long-term and something that will absolutely create more of an equitable experience for our schools who are paying for the program, because they won't have to pay quite as much for the students to attend.
And I would investigate partnerships.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Help share the.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trustee Alvarez and then Trustee Sanchez.
Yeah, I would actually like to talk about my personal experience of that I went last year as a high school student. I'd like to say that it's really great. It's like for someone like me who doesn't have a job, it's a good job experience. You're on a schedule and you also work with kids and this may also help you figure out if you want to work with kids later on in your future. How do you feel about that? And also it's great just to like get away from technology and being in nature. It's an experience because I remember coming back and it felt so different, but I also felt had more energy to go into school, and I was excited. So yeah, I think this is a great idea.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here.
Trustee Sanchez.
You mentioned the lease was yearly. Is there any risk of potentially them not renewing?
Maybe clarify. So
So
on
I-
our end, like they may not renew.
So I know that we've been there,
Yeah.
how many years now? A really long time.
A really long time, yeah.
Because
More than
we
20.
don't own that facility,
Correct.
we don't own that site, then we're at liberty to what they want, the plans that they have for that facility.
Yes, I would say the risk is there. I don't think it's high. The Koinonia Conference Ground just recently had a changeover in executive director. So the person who had been there for 54 years retired, and we now have a new person. He seems in line with working with our program and wanting to support our program. We do bring in their bread and butter. So we book 34 weeks, Tuesday through Friday or Monday through Friday, of 180 plus people, which allows them to keep their kitchen and their maintenance and their accommodation staff employed for those weekend groups and for the summer programs. They would have a hard time filling all of those weeks if they decided not to work with us. So right now it's a mutually beneficial relationship, but it isn't, nothing's guaranteed.
Okay, yeah, no, just looking for other reasons.
Yeah.
The benefits, of having our own place.
Yes, exactly.
Even if the risk is small, the risk is always there.
It's always there, and we're running into some of the laws we need to follow, particularly for our LGBTQIA plus students around bathrooms. They own the site, their bathrooms are set up differently, and so we're looking at creative ways, and we do run into those situations sometimes, but those are really kind of the conveniences, right? We figure it out for our students someday, if and when we own our site. We're very excited to let go of those and create a system that works for what we do.
Thanks, could you remind me, how do we deal with the tuition for low-income students?
So our program and the County Office of Education provides a blanket, a blanket support for in-county schools, regardless of their income or their free and reduced enrollment, which means that essentially we do not pay the indirect costs for being a COE program. And so we take that savings and we pass that on to our in-county schools. So that is one way in which we support our in-county schools, as opposed to our out-of-county schools, which because we're a small county, the majority of our students are out of county, even though we serve thousands of in-county schools. Otherwise, the schools are on the hook and the districts are on the hook for paying the fees. And so schools often figure out, because there is a law that they can't, you can't participate in a field trip or not participate based on financial ability. So the school signs up to figure that out. We don't offer personal scholarships at this point. So it really is a goal to keep our costs down as much as possible every year.
Well, there's a lot of logic here for groundswell on this board for finding our own place, but I think that's probably going to take some thought and planning.
That's okay. I'll be back in a few years and remind you.
Good. Thank you very much. Any final comments or questions, trustees, staff, Ferris?
Yes, if I could add, as a parent of two kids who went through this program, and just it's really wonderful. And in some cases, schools choose to go to other programs, and they invariably come back. The level of experience, the quality of the program, the rigor of and the kind of the learning experience for students when it comes to the next generation science standards. This is an intensive, wonderful learning experience that really, for many students, they describe it as life-changing. And for parents as well, when their kids come back, that was kind of my experience as well. For my kids who ended up, being away from home and really enjoying the experience. And so this is just an absolutely wonderful experience. If you get a chance to go visit, the program. If you haven't had that opportunity, I really encourage you to do so and get immersed into what students are enjoying. It's really absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, one of the mindsets when you're going about your day, you can think, wow, there's probably 150 students walking in the forest right now with my staff. Because it's happening.
Even in the rain.
Even in the rain.
Well, thank you very much. A wonderful
you.
program.
We appreciate your time.
Trustees, we're now to item 8.2. This is the part 2 recap of the administrator kickoff. And this is Dr. Meeker again.
Good afternoon, President Van Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Saban. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you for the first time ever a part 2 to our admin kickoff. We had our first gathering, as you may remember, in August at Seascape, and we had an opportunity at that gathering to kind of preview what we would cover in more depth in September. And so Superintendent Sabat led us through the first chapter of the book on leader credibility. And it was a great opportunity for us to think at the start of the year about the importance of trust, which was our focus for that gathering. I'm going to move us to the next slide and share. This is a very poorly taken photo, clearly not Nick Ibarra. But this is part 2. This was the setting for the second part of that. We had 84 leaders from across our county gather on a Thursday afternoon. And this time we had the opportunity to explore leader credibility with Doug Fisher himself. And so got to get a little more in depth. You'll see in the setting that we were gathered at tables, there were workbooks. This was more of a working session. So we go to the next slide. I want to just preview with you, and that's really the focus of this presentation, is just to share a little bit about what we were looking at and what we hope to continue to investigate. So why leader credibility? Why do we want our leaders to think about this? And the research that Doug Fisher draws on is looking not only at the importance of teacher credibility, but how might leaders who are truly credible magnify and amplify effective instruction? In other words, how might leaders who build that credibility with their staff have a greater impact? And the next slide is a beautiful visual of what happens when you don't have credibility. So when folks don't believe in you, you can have the best presentation in the world. But if your staff doesn't believe in you and the work that you're doing, it just won't go anywhere. So if you go to the next slide, the attributes of leader credibility, this was the framework for the work that we did. There are 5 attributes. And the first one, trust, was what we focused on in August. And really thinking of trust is, how do you build that trust amongst your community? How do you build it through your actions, through your beliefs, through your collaboration? We also thought about, how do you break that trust, which is a different presentation, not something we want to practice, but important to think about. Another important attribute is dynamism, which is that quality of leadership that is energetic, happy to be there, really believing in what they do and being confident. The next attribute is competence, and we focused on 2 forms of that competence: skill-based and communication. And skill-based is really knowing what you're doing, and communication-based competence is really understanding the best way to communicate with your team. The fourth one is immediacy, which was hard to do during the pandemic, but something we're all exploring more now, which is leadership that is present, that is engaged, that is not just walking around the building, but really paying attention to what's going on. And the last attribute is the one that I'm going to address in a little more depth in the next few slides, but it's the one that's particular to leaders, more so even than teachers, and that's forward thinking. So if you go to the next slide, and this is really kind of touching on what it means to be forward thinking, but that you're not just looking at your mission, but that you're imagining what could happen, what are some of the challenges that may be ahead. And on the next slide, because we like list, there are 8 different traits of leaders who are forward-thinking or really cognizant of or thinking about future trends. And without reading through this list, you can kind of see that there are attributes that are more about being practical, pragmatic, like maybe conscious of your budgets, I don't know, but grounded, knowing what's possible. But there are also elements of future leadership that are about acknowledging what we don't yet know, being curious, being humble, being open-minded. And so this was a great frame for us to think about leadership that is grounded in the work that we do and being available to consider what we haven't done yet. So our next couple of slides were some exercises that we went through. And the first one was we considered the past, because in order to move forward, you need to think about the lessons you've learned from the past, whether personal lessons, professional, and thinking about what are those themes that have come up. And our next slide is we went through a process of imagining the possibilities. And so what I really appreciate about this particular exercise is thinking about the importance of carving out time to read, to engage, to think differently, to not be stuck in that zone of we've never done that or we've tried that and it didn't work, but to really be curious about and considering what's possible. And then the next slide is where kind of bringing it together with the frame of optimism. And again, this has been hard to do in recent years, but I think we're at a time in education where we can afford to be optimistic and we should be optimistic. So being grounded in the lessons we've learned in our past, being curious about and being open to what's possible in the future, and thinking about what's better and what's next. So not being stuck in that we can't do this or it's not possible, but really exploring that. So that was just a little piece of what we talked about. Here again is a poorly lit photo of leaders engaging in conversation and dialogue. One of the things that we did at the very close, and Superintendent Sabah got to participate with us, was Doug Fisher asked us to write on a Post-it one idea, one strategy that resonated with us. And then we got up and we passed that to someone else and talked about it. And then they took that idea and they exchanged with another person. And over the course of maybe 15, 20 minutes, we were able to share these ideas around the room. And that, I think, really leads me to my last slide, which is, that's another. This is just like a poorly shot photo montage, but so we don't have to look at that slide. But the one next was really happening in the room, that the participants were not just looking at their worksheets and their readings, but they were getting up and they were exchanging ideas. And as we visit with our districts and we visit with our leadership teams, we're already seeing some of that impact with folks saying we're going to take on some new readings, we're going to carve out time to think about our future, we're going to be more curious. And so hoping to, moving forward, really consider an admin kickoff that is grounded in learning over an extended period. We were together for 3.5 hours with really good food. And so thinking, hopefully for next year, this might be a possibility moving forward. Is really giving those leaders an opportunity to engage with each other and with some learning that has an impact beyond the day. So I can take any questions.
Trustees, questions or comments? Well, I would just say that I am so glad to see this happening because leadership is important, and in a big organization like this, there's several levels of leadership, and it's all interacting and important. And I'm glad to see everybody putting the time and attention to this and learning. And I learned a few things from this too, so I'll benefit. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
I like the idea of the Post-its and handing them off and so that it goes through the room discussion. I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket.
Yeah, it was really palpable in a way that if you just turn to your partner, you just exchange, but it was great to carry somebody else's Post-it to another person. Yeah, it's great.
So, yes, just gratitude to Dr. Meeker for bringing Doug Fisher to here and for really bringing together so many of our administrators. This idea of credibility and trust is so important and are going to help us continue this important work.
Thank you.
Trustees, we are now at item 8.3. This is a report on our unaudited actual financial statement. And looks like, yeah, you're ready. Okay.
I'd like to introduce our Director of Finance, Melissa Lopez. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, President Van Allen, members of the board, Dr. Sabah. Thank you for allowing me to stand in for Leanne this evening. She is off at a professional development offerings for Southern California. So I will do my best to channel Leanne. Don't know that we didn't put jokes in here, and I just now realized that. I am so sorry. I'll try to make it quick. Make up for it. So we just finished closing the books for 22-23. I'd like to give a big thanks to my internal team, financial analysts Tara Lee, Brooke Rosso, and Natia Ambrosi, who put in a ton of work to get all those accounts closed. I couldn't have done it without them. So quickly, we have just a few bullets of things we'll talk about. Leanne's favorite, Rose's favorite, the GASB 31 and the fair market value adjustments and impacts. Some overviews of the 22-23 unaudited actuals, some differences between what happened at unaudited actuals versus what we were planning at estimated actuals, and then what's next. Okay, so GASB 31. So as Leanne shared last year, this has been around since March of 1997. It requires the reporting of the financial effect of all unrealized gains and losses on invested funds. Reporting this of our unrealized gains of invested funds simply means our cash on hand at the county treasury, the entire pool of money at the treasury. Historically, up until 21-22, these were just recorded as an adjusting entry on our audit report, and it was not actually included in the books. Starting in 21-22, our auditors and many auditors throughout the state decided that this did need to be recorded within your books, or the consequence would be an audit finding. So now you see it in our books. This will be an entry that you'll see every year going forward and a slide that we'll keep in every presentation. So for this, it resulted in an unplanned decrease to our unrestricted revenue in the amount of nearly $1.4 million, which falsely decreased our unrestricted ending fund balance at June 30th to $28.6 million. Because this is just the unrealized gains, these are reversed as of July 1st on our books. And we won't know what the entry will be for the closing until we get into July or August of the following year. So it's not necessarily a number we can plan for. Okay, next slide. So this is just going to be a quick recap showing our unrestricted and our restricted and then total dollars in our general fund or our county school service fund. Examples of some things that fall into our restricted budget are going to be like Migrant Head Start, routine and restricted maintenance, special education, and all of the one-time COVID-related state and federal grant funds. Included in the total expenditures that you'll see for unrestricted dollars will be nearly $1.5 million in contributions. 1.3 million of this went from our unrestricted fund into our routine and restricted maintenance, which was a planned contribution. The other portion, about 180,000, was split between some special education, funding our tier 2 admin credential program, and our new teacher project for induction. Okay, so this one's going to show you, the first column is what we projected at estimated actuals, which was presented during our 23-24 adopted budget. The second column will be our 22-23 unaudited actuals, with the final column being the variance. One piece that I would really like to mention would be the portion at the bottom that says non-spendable committed COP. You'll see that commitment went from $1.2 million down to 0. And that's a big drop. But in May, I believe, we brought forth a resolution to open a debt service fund, Fund 56, that is specifically dollars set aside to pay down our COP. So that $1.2 million is still held with COE. It's just not in our unrestricted ending fund balance anymore.
I want to pause for a second for the new trustees. The COP, that stands for Certificate of Participation, basically the loan agreement by which we bought this building. And we have a long-term payment plan, so that's what they're reporting on.
So we moved that, the full amount of the committed dollars, the 1.2 million, from our unrestricted general fund into the restricted Fund 56 for the debt services to pay off the certificate of participation for this building. A little farther on, we'll see there was the other fund within our restricted fund balance that we had set aside for that was also moved over. So that part will be exciting. Okay, so overall, our revenue decreased by just over $2 million from estimated actuals. So while that sounds like a big number, 1.4 million of that, just under 1.4 million, was the fair market value adjustment from GASB 31 on the beginning slides. Another $1 million was close to, or $1.1 million was for our school-based Medi-Cal administrative activities program. And that is a pass-through of federal dollars that comes in through our local educational consortia for our SMAW program. And those funds get distributed out to all of the participating districts and LEAs within the region. So while there was $1 million decrease in that federal revenue, there was also a corresponding decrease in expense of the same amount that was not passed through. Those federal programs on the SMAW side take a really long time for the dollars to come in. The claims on any given school year can be submitted 12 months after the date of service. So when those payments really come through, we are sometimes looking at 2 years post service or invoice being submitted. So the timing is really up to the state on those. And then there was about $500,000 a mix between federal, state, and local dollars that changed. And then on our expenses, these declined about $4.6 million, which is pretty significant. 1.1 million of that was the pass-through of the federal SMAW program, the school-based Medi-Cal. About $650,000 was a reduction in personnel and salaries and benefits, and about $1 million in materials, and another $1 million was related to services that were not provided prior to the end of the fiscal year. So overall, the change to our fund balance when compared to estimated actuals and what actually happened ended up being about $315,000. So the unrestricted balance, estimated balance changed by about $150,000, and restricted changed by about $464,000 for a net change of $314,000. Okay, so in closing, our special reserve fund for other than capital outlay projects, our Fund 17, that did end with a $3.1 million fund balance. This is also subject to the GASB 31, which was an adjustment down of $119,000. Our debt service fund, as I mentioned earlier, Fund 56 ended with a total of $2.2 million for the close of 22-23. So 1.2 million was transferred over from the committed unrestricted balance, as well as $1 million from the restricted redevelopment agency program. So I was really excited looking at that because that already puts us at least a few years ahead of schedule on where we can pay that down. The current balance on our COP is about 6.8 million. So getting 2.2 in there at this point is pretty exciting for us numbers people. This week, we are working with our auditors to finish up their audit of the 22-23 financials, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they will be completed by December and get back on track with having our audits completed in December. And our staff are now jumping right into our first interim financials. So we will be back on December 21st with all the 23-24 first interim reports for you. And any comments or questions?
Trustees, comments, questions? Any comments, Dr. Spa?
Just as basically our ending balance, there weren't significant changes. It was about $300,000, correct, and on the ending balance. So we're looking on the unrestricted side, I believe, right?
The total change on the fund balance was about 315,000 different than we had projected at estimated actual. So unrestricted went down, restricted went up for a net of about 300,000.
So I think if there's one thing that basically where we started the year and where we ended up with, it's basically we're very close to where our fund balance where we started the year. And so I think that that's something that's important. So a lot of the movement we're always looking at, there was a reduction in both funding and revenue that's coming in as well as in expenditures. And so that those two balance each other.
And I think even if I can add at estimated actuals, while we were doing the 23-24 adopted budget, there were a lot of the federal and state one-time funds that had longer durations. So while we were at that period, things that we knew weren't going to happen in 22-23 that were they were adjusted at that point to be reflected in either the 23-24, the 24-25 budgets. So we're trying to keep them all smoothed as those ending dates approach.
Seems like you've covered it for us sufficiently to trigger no questions.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Melissa.
And if I could also just offer my congratulations and thanks to our wonderful Fiscal Services Department, all the great work that has gone into preparing this, closing the books. This is one of the busiest times of the year for our team, and they've done an outstanding job. So thank you. And if you could pass our commendations to the whole team, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
The new trustees, if your head has been swimming at these numbers, if these numbers make your head swim, just know, first of all, you can learn about it, and if you study the reports they send out in the agenda, just gradually, don't try to get it all in one thing. But the other thing that makes it okay is we have such great staff who understand it and stick with it and get the books to balance, and I love that. So thank you. Okay, trustees, we are now at item 8.3. This is, I'm sorry, that's what we just finished. We are now to new business, section 9. And 9.1 is the board needs to make an appointment of a nominee to the Personnel Commission. And we have a nominee, Lawrence Lane. And is Troy here?
Actually, I'm going to be, Troy had a family situation that he had to handle, and I'll be. So this is a action for the board to appoint a member for the Personnel Commission. We are a merit district, and so if you look at the education code, it means we have to have a Personnel Commission, which is a group of folks who really help oversee the classified personnel issues when we hire, and create positions and so on. This is under Education Code 45246. We appoint a total of 3 people to 3 commissioners who represent the Personnel Commission. One of those appointees is appointed by CSEA, by our labor union. Another commissioner is appointed by the administration, and a third commissioner is appointed combined by CSEA and by the administration. These commissioners work for 3 years, or they have a term, sorry, for 3 years. It starts in January to December. And currently we have Larry Lane, who is a long-term administrator. I got to work with Mr. Lane while he was at PUSD. And he has been a commissioner representing the administration for a long time. And he will be in his current term until December 31st of 2023. He has over 30 years of experience. He was a principal of Watsonville High School and has been a part of WASC committees and done a variety of different leadership, has played different leadership roles in education. He's somebody who brings a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of accolades for his leadership in education. And so the request for your consideration and approval is for Mr. Lane to serve another term of 3 years as the representative for administration on our Personnel Commission here at the Campus Education.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, trustees? If not, this action takes a voice vote. I guess we're ready for that. So all in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously.
I do believe we need to make a
roll call.
No, but not roll call, but we do need a motion and a second.
Oh,
I move the board appoint Larry Lane as our representative.
Trustee Nichols, may you use your mic, please?
Oh. I make a motion to appoint Larry Lane or Lawrence Lane for another 3-year term. I'm glad he's willing to serve. He's really experienced in education, and I'm glad that the Personnel Commission has experienced educators serving on it.
I have a motion from Nichols. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sanchez. Okay, now voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I apologize for skipping a step there. Thank you. Well appointed. We are now to item 9.2. This is a resolution on the GAM amendment appropriations limit. And Melissa, are you going to do this for us?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me back. So this GAN limit. The GAN limit, also known as a Proposition 4, was approved by voters in November of 1979. This resolution established a limit on the amount of tax money that state and local governments, including school districts, can legally spend. The calculation is adjusted annually for changes in inflation and population. The GAN limit calculations are performed not only at the agency level, but also at the state level. Therefore, if an agency is determined to be over their GAN limit, the agency may adopt a governing board resolution increasing its limit by the amount needed. The agency must notify the director of the State Department of Finance, who will in turn reduce the state's GAN limit by an equal dollar amount. To calculate the GAN limit, envision the dollar amount of the GAN limit as a bucket, and the bucket can hold $50 million. This is just a pretend dollar, it's not our dollars, just for visualization purposes. First, you would put in the local property taxes included in your local control funding formula. Then you would pour in all of your school district's other unrestricted state aid into the same bucket. The amount of state aid that fills up the bucket counts towards the school district's GAN limit, while the amount that overflows the bucket would count towards the state's GAN limit. By reducing the amount of state aid that counts toward the state's GAN limit in this manner, the process helps the state to avoid being over its GAN limit. So for 22-23, do you know if the calculation is on there too, the SACS form?
It is not on the slides, but it is in their
It
packet.
is in the packet. Okay, thank you. And again, the font that is on these SACS forms is set at the CDE. So it's about a size 4, maybe size 6 font, and we have no control over it. So the 22-23 appropriations limit is $19,383,250.33. The 22-23 inflation is 7.55%. The population adjustment at 7.85%. The GAN limit for COE's ADA is at 98.52% for county ADA. And our 23-24 preliminary appropriations limit is $20,186,206.39. That's all for the GAN.
Thank you. Trustees, we need a motion to adopt this resolution. Approving again amendment appropriations limit. Motion by Nichols.
Yes, I move approval of this agenda item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Motion by Nichols, second by Roth, and we need a roll call vote, please.
Okay, we have a new order, so give me a moment. Okay, Trustee Acosta.
Aye.
Trustee Alta.
Yes.
Trustee Estrada.
Estrada?
Yeah, sorry.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Trustee Nichols.
Yes.
Trustee Roth.
Approve.
Trustee Sanchez.
Yes.
Trustee Alvarez.
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously of all present. Thank you. Get our routines down here. Trustees, we are now at item 9.3. This is a resolution recognizing Native American Heritage Month. And I'd like Trustee Nichols to motivate this, please.
Sure. We are facing a resolution that recognizes the National Native American Heritage Month, which is from November 1st to the end of November. And we're doing this in a timely manner because we're anticipating that November will come and we'll be recognizing the Native American heritage. I'm gonna just mention a few highlights here, things I find interesting, according to the US Census in 2010, there were more than 5 million Native Americans or people of Native American descent living in the United States. And there's a local band of, the name of the band is the Ama Mutsun Tribal Band. And they're a community of Native Americans in this area. And we know the name from their efforts to remove the mission bells as a symbol of the mission, the dominance of the conquerors. And as part of this resolution, it says that the Amamutsu tribal band comprises the descendants of Mutsu speaking indigenous people who were taken to the Mission Santa Cruz and the Mission San Juan Bautista. That's quite a drive there. I find that I think it's important to recognize the Native American people, and I am thrilled to bring this to you. And I think we did this last year and maybe other previous years. Thanks to Nick Ibarra, I think your last name is Nick, and Bernice for getting this in the proper format.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from trustees? Otherwise, I'd like a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Keeping your record for today, a motion by Nichols, second by Ron. And this requires a roll call vote.
Okay, I'm prepared now. Trustee Acosta.
Aye.
Trustee Alta.
Yes.
Trustee Alvarez.
Yes.
Trustee Estrada.
Aye.
Trustee Nichols.
Yes.
Trustee Roth.
Approved.
Trustee Sanchez.
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Motion carries unanimously, all present. Thank you. Trustees, we're now at item 9.4. This is a resolution recognizing United Against Hate Week. And again, Trustee Nichols, would you care to introduce it?
Sure, I don't think anyone wouldn't want to recognize that we are unified against hate. And that is an easy decision to make. I really didn't think of picking out particular bullet points on this resolution, but I believe we do this every year also, and that this is a tradition, and I'm so glad that we have this tradition of taking a stand against hate. And it mentions bullying in the schools as one of the let's see, how do I say that bullying is one of the hatred things that kids do to each other at school. And I'm glad that's included. The resolution is well written and easy to read. I'm sure you all have read it already.
Comments or questions, trustees? Otherwise, I would like a motion. Actually, I would like to make a comment first, which is that meeting hate with hate is the way to really spiral down. And so to me, it's especially important to recognize the humanity of people that we're having difficulty with. So a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2335.
Motion by Sanchez.
I'll second. Oh, give it Kim. He was first.
Second by Acosta. And we need a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Acosta.
Aye.
Trustee Alta.
Yes.
Trustee Alvarez.
Yes.
Trustee Estrada.
Aye.
Trustee Nichols.
Yes.
Trustee Roth.
Yes.
Trustee Sanchez.
Yes.
President Van Allen.
Thank you. Beats our section on resolutions, and we are now to item 10, superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. Let me just go ahead and load up our slide deck here. I have some data to share with you today. We recently received the data from the state for the CASP Smarter Balance Assessments for our county and state. And so I'll be talking to you a little bit about that, and also for our chronic absenteeism data for last year as well. So I'll be sharing a little bit of data with you. You'll be able to, if you go to our own data portal at Santa Cruz, dataportal.santacruzcoe.org, you'll actually find tools for you to be able to interact with the data. And we created this portal with the help of Miguel Rocha, who is our data scientist, to make it so that people didn't have to find somebody else to help them manipulate the data and answer questions. It is also designed so that we could look at our data with an equity focus, being able to look at groups of students and see how well they're doing compared to each other. So we just received data on chronic absenteeism. And if you remember, chronic absenteeism are for the students who have missed 10% or more of their schooling in a year for any reason. If they're not in their seat, doesn't matter if it's an excused absence or not, then they're absent and they're counted in this category. One of the greatest correlations in our schools is between seat time and being present and being successful in almost all measures. The more time that our students miss from school, the more difficult, the more likely it is for them to be unsuccessful in our school system. So just to give you some perspective on what 10% represents, so that's 2 days a month or 18 days, which is almost a month of school that our students are missing. So the percentage of students that meet this threshold are considered to be in that category of chronic absenteeism. We look at our data across multiple years, and of course, we're hoping to see that our numbers, that this group of students be reduced over time. So looking at how our chronic absenteeism looked in the last year, which is 22-23, you'll see that we've organized the data in a way so that we could look at all our students, which is this brown. I'm sorry, the order is not exactly how we had hoped it. So 26% of our students were in that category of chronic absenteeism in 22-23. And if you go into the data portal, you'll be able to break this data down. But we also put in some of our the groups of students who from certain categories, as again part of our equity focus. So students with disabilities, 36% of students are missing 10% of their school. Students who qualify for free and reduced lunch or low socioeconomically disadvantaged, 33%. Our English learners, 32%. Our Latino students, 31%. And our white students at 21%. And so not only do we see very high numbers, nearly a third of our students across a county in these specific categories, but we also see an equity gap where students from historically marginalized categories are also showing high levels of chronic absenteeism. Now this one's going to be hard for you to see because there's a lot of bars and you won't be able to see the numbers, unfortunately. They're the same colors I just showed you. But this compares us to the state. So this is how we compare to California in the same categories. And so you'll notice that we are showing very similar numbers to the state of California. You look at the bars on the top and the bars on the bottom are matched pretty consistently. And you can't really see, the first column is 2018-19. This was before the pandemic. The second column is 2020-21. And then the next column is 21-22, which is when we came out of the pandemic or at least transitioned back into in-person, and then 22-23, which was last year. So just right off the bat, you can see what between the first two columns and the second two columns. You can see a very high increase in the bars, right? So this is the pattern that we're seeing both in the state of California and here in Santa Cruz County. You'll see for all the different categories a very similar pattern that our students are matching. For example, in 21-22, 37% of our students with disabilities, whereas the state was at 41%. So similar numbers. For our students who come from low SES or socioeconomically disadvantaged, 36% in Santa Cruz County, which is the top bar, and in the state is 37%. And so you'll see a very similar pattern that really reminds us that we have a lot of work to do to bring students back to school. And also, especially for our students that come from who are qualified for special education or come from families with or socioeconomically disadvantaged, or English learners or Latino students. You can, if you go to the data portal, you can select all the data groups and you can play around with that. And so it is a little bit dizzying and sometimes you can get a little bit too much data on the screen. And so I'm kind of giving you a big picture kind of description of this, but absolutely, not only are we seeing large numbers of students who are not enrolling in our schools in most of our districts, we're seeing a drop in enrollment, but also in attendance, we're seeing large numbers of students who are not coming to school. As you can see, in many cases, about a third of our students. This is also over there. If you look at it district by district, you'll see that there is also a difference in how different districts, and in some districts, this, especially PVUSD, which has higher numbers of students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged and more Latino students, they have a higher number of students who are meeting this criteria of chronically absentee. Any questions about this before I move on to talk about?
I wonder whether schools attempt to communicate with the parents of the children that are most difficulty getting to school, or are sick a lot, or go on vacation and don't go to school.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So all the school districts have been very concerned about this, and together we have launched an attendance initiative to encourage attendance. And I do think that there's really three levels of this approach that our schools are attempting. The first one is kind of like the negative approach, which is if you miss 3 days of school, we're legally required by law to send an attendance letter that says you've missed 3 days of school. And if you miss a lot of school, there's also a process where we try to support families with this the Student Assistance Review Board process, which is really a multidisciplinary team approach to try to identify what's the reason why students are missing school. There's also the mental health piece, because a lot of the students who are missing school are experiencing mental health challenges and they need to be supported. And there is kind of a counterproductive effect that happens if I'm having a hard time as a young person and don't want to get out of my room. The one place that I can get services and support is school, because we have invested across the county deeply and heavily in mental health services. And so getting students to school is really the best place for them. And that's the message we're sending to parents, is that if your students are having a hard time, please get them to school and we'll get you connected to resources, services, therapeutic services if that's what they need. There's also kind of positive incentives for students to improve their attendance, and really trying to encourage students to come to school, and those who have been struggling to really improve their attendance. And of course, some of the rewards would be grades and kind of the traditional rewards, but some schools like Live Oak School District have been implementing additional PBIS rewards, celebrating students who are improving their attendance. So all of this is our way of communicating to families and really encouraging families in a very positive way to remind them that school is the best place for their children, and that we want to get as many students in school to be able to learn, and also to get the support they need to thrive.
You'd think that the families that are most economically disadvantaged would really want to have their children at school, because they probably get fed breakfast at school and they get lunch without charges. So I think that's a motivator. I'm surprised. My students that I reflected on as being socially disadvantaged or economically disadvantaged in their homes, they loved when Monday came, because something exciting was happening for them at school, and they were given their food, and I just think that I'm surprised that socially or economically I have a large voice, and I'm sure you can hear me, that I wouldn't think they'd prefer being at home, where their meals will probably not be the same quality that they get in the cafeteria.
Well, I think it's important if you look at the difference before the pandemic and after the pandemic. So the number of families who qualified as low socioeconomic hasn't necessarily changed. The fact their ethnicity has not changed, their fact that they qualify. So something else has changed, right? And when we talk to families, they're not saying, I don't want my child to go to school. They're saying, I'm having trouble that I'm not able to convince my child, or they're really having a hard time, and they don't want to go to school, for example, in some cases. And so part of this is a trend that we were seeing already increasing, that has now increased significantly. And there's a variety of different reasons why this is happening. Many of the families are, choosing a more independent study approach for the schooling, for example. And in many cases, students are struggling and needing additional resources and support. And so it's not a simple issue, and it isn't, for the most part, a choice that parents are just saying, well, I'm just not going to send my child to school. And I think that because it's multifaceted, our approach has to be multifaceted and has to be adapted. We have to listen to our students and to our families to find out what the reasons are, and really try to help overcome whatever it is that the challenges that they're experiencing. COVID, of course, has had an effect on some of the respiratory ailments. There has been more ailments, respiratory ailments than they've had in the past. So that has increased absenteeism and also some of the requirements for them to stay home when they're ill. And a variety of other reasons. And so we're investing into learning from our families what it is we can do to support them so that our students can come to school.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Estrada.
Yeah, one question I had regarding mental health. What are the reporting requirements and privacy rights for students? Because I know a lot of students might not feel comfortable sharing their mental health with administrators because they fear it's going to get communicated back to their parents. Maybe they're trying to hide it. Maybe their parents don't believe in mental health treatment. I know a lot of Latino families, it's very stigmatized. It can be very difficult to talk to your families about that. So what are the privacy requirements of that?
So we definitely would love to maybe have a presentation about mental health services, including privacy. The short answer is that over the age of 12, students have a right to privacy. And so it is not communicated to parents generally unless students are wanting that information to be communicated to parents about them receiving mental health services. In many cases, it is both something that students and parents ask for together, or in some cases, the parents are the ones that are asking for those services. But it's very different for different students. And this actually ties into something I'm going to talk about a little bit later when it comes to students not wanting their LGBTQ plus status to be communicated as well. They also have a right to privacy for that as well. And so in many ways, the schools do protect the privacy of students, but stigma is absolutely a huge challenge to overcome, both for students themselves as well as for some families. And part of our effort is to communicate to families really to reduce that stigma and to talk about wellness as part of what we go to school for. That, getting help and talking to somebody and being able to have a confidential conversation with a professional can help you is something that we want to make available to everybody. And so I really appreciate the question, and maybe in the future we could talk a little bit about what schools have done to make these services available, and how do we protect student privacy, and how do we reduce stigma in schools when it comes to
Trustee Roth.
It appears that, at least in California, that this is being challenged with school boards and schools as far as release of information. So there's a shift going on, but it's important for the student to have their privacy.
One little comment I would make is that it seems very important to keep the outreach and the appeal to families and students in a positive framework, because I think part of the problem here is the growing distrust of institutions, unfortunately, including schools. And so if people feel that the family or the kid is going to get punished, or something bad is going to happen to them, or the sort of punitive, that's going to just drag them away further. It seems it's not going to draw them back. And so I appreciate the approach that we're taking here, which is to offer the benefits and make sure that they're clear and be positive about it and welcoming, not punitive or law enforcement kind of approach. So, you do have more?
Yes, I do. So the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress is a system that is basically the accountability system for the state to offer a variety of different assessments to determine how well students are progressing. One of those assessments is the Smarter Balance English Language Arts and Math assessment, and that's what we're going to be talking about, because we just got the data released to the public in the last couple of days. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that information, because knowing that students are proficient is a way for us to know if students have met those standards and where they're at. And the percentage of students that are at that standard or above the standard really helps us get a sense of how many students are, according to the state, learning developing learning as it ties to the standards of their grade level. And so looking a little bit about the data, I wanted to show you this chart, which shows you from 2015, which starts back here, to 2023, which is the data we just got. You'll notice that every year, this is across the county in math, the percentage of students who are at or above the standard on the CASP, on the Smarter Balance Assessment. So you'll see that in 2019, it went up to 36%, and then we didn't have assessments in the last 2 years, and then last year we had it's gone down to, or in 2022, the previous year, and then this year it's stayed at about 31%. And so we're seeing kind of flat numbers for this. I'm going to show you in a moment how different groups of students also compare to each other. But generally speaking, we saw a reduction since prior to the pandemic, and a very slight increase this last year. When we look at our language arts assessment, you'll see that we have continued to drop from the high at 2019, and we're at about 42% this last year, 2023. Which is, so imagine this is 2023 last year, so the last school year. Now, if we, you're not going to be able to see this, unfortunately, but you can kind of see that these 6 different columns. The first column and the first row is Santa Cruz County. The bottom is the state. You'll notice that this first column here are students who are English language learners. How well you'll see that across all the years from 2015 through 2023, they're scoring around 25% of the students in mathematics. Students who come from low socioeconomic families, same, about also from between 25% and 30%. And our Latinx or Hispanic students, also in the same category. When we compare those students to our English only students, you'll see that they're in the 60th percentile in our county. And students who do not qualify for free and reduced lunch, you'll see that they're also up by around 65%. And our white families, white students, also up in the 65 to 70%. So the comparison is from an equity point of view, is looking at the left side, which are language learners, students from low socioeconomic and Hispanic students, to our English only students who don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, and our white students. And you see that this discrepancy, this distance between these two groups is what we call the equity gap when it comes to this assessment. Now, when we look at the state of California, which is a slower set, you'll see a very similar pattern. The English only students are a little bit lower, but a very similar pattern in the state of California. Although our numbers for the last 3 columns are higher than the ones for California, which go up to about 60% at the highest. And so the equity gap exists in California, and it is persistent. We have not been able to successfully reduce that equity gap, and of course you cannot. You see that before the pandemic we were moving in an upward trajectory, and since then we have declined, and we continue to work hard to try to help students overcome this. Looking at language arts, you'll see. Oops. I am so sorry. So the top level was math, and the bottom one was language arts. I apologize. And so looking at this, I'm gonna have to check my math here. Give me just 1 second here. I apologize. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information.
While he's checking that, I just want to let you all know that I have emailed this PowerPoint to you all, so you can look at the numbers more closely.
Thank you.
Ferris, can I just add?
Yes, please.
So really appreciate the data visualizations, and one reframing that we've taken to in our department and across our county is when we look at the data, we're talking about this as system data, because we know that the students are not inherently there's no deficit there. The students are amazing. Our multilingual students are students who are living in challenging circumstances. So we look at the data by student group, but we talk about what can the system do differently, because we know that the students are amazing, and that whatever we were doing in 2018-19, we need to kind of replicate that to bring the increase that we saw there back again.
All right, thank you for that, Angela. I appreciate the framing of that, and I do think that it's when we think about equity, I think that Dr. Meeker's point is really an important one, which is the fact that we have different students who are performing differently really reminds us that the system needs to change, right? We have to continue to adapt our schools and the systems to be able to better serve our students. We know that if they're given the right systems, the right supports, that they will be able to reach those goals, and we've seen that work. And if you look at some of the breakdowns a little bit more, if you break this down, looking at different schools and different districts, in fact, you'll see many pockets of excellence that are taking place in our districts that can be modeled for other schools and other districts. And so the further we step back from it, the more blurry the image is, and the more detailed we can get to understand the individual approaches and systems that are in place, the more we can learn. And I think as our county office, when it comes to thinking about how we can support districts, is really creating that culture of support. We're saying, wow, you really did great. PBSD did great when it came to their English language learners developing proficiency in English. Let's learn from them. Let's learn from Santa Cruz City Schools. They did an excellent job when it came to, if you look at Santa Cruz City Schools and how well students did in their CASP assessments, they did very well. They in many cases went up several points. Let's look at what they're doing so that we could learn from them. And I think that's an important approach that we use for our role in supporting our school districts, in addition to providing them with support with kind of tried and true systems of support where we have. Any other questions for me on this before I give a few more updates?
Trustee Roth.
How do we identify free and reduced now?
That's a great question. So the state now is requiring schools to provide free lunches to all students. And in the past, if you wanted to get free lunch, you had to complete the paperwork to complete it, to be able to qualify. And so there's less motivation now to complete the paperwork because your child's going to get free lunch whether they qualify or not. But the schools are working hard to continue to try to convince families to complete it. It is part of their packet for all families generally, and many of them will continue to complete it. They're going to complete the forms as they've always done. And so we have seen, some efforts by school districts, additional efforts by school districts to be able to do that, because it can affect funding, it can affect a variety of different, grants that you don't qualify for, and federal funding as well as other funding sources that are really important. So, schools are going to continue to do that, and I do believe they're generally doing a pretty effective job in keeping those numbers up.
Probably difficult.
Backing off on that one, if I may, is there another term or is there another thing that we can look at that can give us similar results? Just because I feel like free and reduced lunch is an outdated term. If everyone gets free lunch, then keep calling it free and reduced lunch. Like that's 100%, right? 100% of students get free or reduced lunch. So is there another term, or is there another measure that we can use to measure, to get the results, or to focus on the students that we do really want to focus on? I don't know if that's a conversation just been had at the state level or locally.
The bureaucratic term, SES, so social.
Socioeconomically disadvantaged is a term that means families coming from low income that have and that's based on how much income they get based on the federal threshold for income. That's kind of what it's based on.
How would you verify that on that information?
How do they verify?
How would the state verify that information?
So the process, the forms that are completed by families, I'm not sure if do they actually do a verify the income?
They
Angela?
do, they have a process of selecting a certain number. So for all the forms that are turned in, the food service director selects a certain number to be audited, to be.
But we're still talking about free and reduced lunch, trying to get away from that, another measure, another format that can be used, so that we can still accurately address, and have that data for this group of students that we're.
Are you saying that you're wanting a different way of determining which families would qualify as having low income?
I think it's more a different label.
Correct, yes, I think the free and reduced lunch is outdated, I think we need something new. What is that new thing that can help us target and still address those issues?
I guess I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question. So I think what you're saying is that when it comes to speaking about families who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, which is a term that we use, that we shouldn't use the term that they qualify for free and reduced lunch. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not concerned about the term itself. I'm concerned about losing, like you mentioned, some of those funds, because now people aren't applying, for that free and reduced lunch because they don't have to apply anymore.
Right.
So is there another measure that we can use so that our numbers don't potentially drop?
I see what you're saying. So you're saying the process for qualifying that we use through the food services departments and the forms that we're using. I mean, the challenge, I think, is that the only way that we're able to identify families who are low income is for the families to complete a form, even whether it's for free and reduced lunch or anything else. They would still have to complete the form and self-report how much their income is. And so right now, the reason why we use that process has just been, it's been effective, since the 60s, to be able to determine which families are low income. I think until, if there was a way for us to, let's say, use, I don't know, the tax revenues or something like that to be able to determine which families are low income, we would still have to ask families to fill out a form and self-report what their income is.
Okay, I'm gonna put that as a homework for me for 2024.
Okay.
I can share just really
It's a
quickly, there
statement.
is a new title. It's a really nice long title for the form. It is the Survey to Preserve School Funding and Family Benefit Application.
Okay.
But I think,
Not a
I
strong
think
marketing
that,
point.
yeah, I think Trustee Sanchez is not, it's not so much the term of free and reduced lunch, but you're concerned about how else can we get this information that could be more effective?
Yes, so we have districts that are dependent on these additional funds, right, that we are receiving, and we used to have a measure that seemed to be working. But now there's that risk that because of the process in which people were reporting, maybe they're not incentivized anymore to self-report. So how do we still make sure that those students, that group, receives the funds that they need?
I understand.
I think it's just time to support it.
I mean, it's really kind of a statewide thing, because it's the state.
It's a
that
state,
they-
exactly. That's the way that they, correct. I'll talk to Senator Laird about it.
Yes.
So we're still on the superintendent's report, questions to follow up?
Yeah, still going on this just a little bit more. Is it also like a state versus federal issue? Does the federal government send funds based off of the free and reduced lunch? And if we were to change that form statewide or something like that, would it have to be approved bureaucratically by Washington?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, it is, there are challenges. For example, speaking to Superintendent Gross from Pacific Elementary, the way that the free and reduced lunch process has impacted their district has been extremely problematic and detrimental, because they don't actually qualify for a lot of services. Because many of the students that come to that district, for example, are students who have completed interdistrict transfer. And the way the rules are designed is if the funding doesn't actually come to Pacific Elementary, because the students are interdistrict, are transferring from another district. And so he has been advocating, for example, as one change, that if the students are coming to your school, then the funding and the requirements would follow you to the school that you're in, and that school would get those funds. And so it is both a federal challenge as well as a state challenge. But both the states, federals, and a variety of grants will use that number of how many families that qualify using those forms. It is used for a lot of different decision making and thresholds for schools to be able to get funding or not. But it is both state and federal.
But we have Abel on the job now, so it's gonna get.
And it's really important. I've been questioning it for years because Scotts Valley, we had people that refused to fill out that form. And they qualified, but they did not want to be identified. And they didn't understand that they were affecting the actual funding of our programs. And I'm saying it's probably occurring in other districts also.
Right, good. Almost finished. Thank you so much. So just gonna share my screen one more time. And just a few more points that I wanted to share with you. As you already heard, and you passed a resolution for United Against Hate. We're going to be, working with all our districts to be able to continue to bring awareness and bring resources to our schools and to our community about hate and speaking out against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other efforts of other concerning expressions that and making sure that we are fighting and standing up for our students and our making sure that our schools are safe and are inclusive environments for all students. They also wanted to share that our robotics program has launched both at Watsonville and here in Santa Cruz, and we had I believe about 20 students who in the Watsonville at Sequoia, and almost I think about 25 or maybe almost 30 students who are part of our weekend program here down the street with X Academy. And so we're really excited about it, and it is part of that 3-year plan that I shared with you that to bring robotics and make it accessible to all students across the county. You may have seen in one of the information that I sent out about new legislation that has been put in place and signed by the governor to create safe, supportive environments for all students. AB 5, which is the Safe and Supportive Schools Act, AB 223, which is in support of making sure that we are protecting the privacy of students when it comes to students who inform schools about a change of gender or sex or their sexual identification. Also AB 994, AB 760, ensuring that by 2026 that all facilities will have all gender restrooms in our schools, and then SB 857, which is by Senator Laird to create a statewide task force in support of our LGBTQ plus students. And so a lot of legislation that is being put in place that also involves schools and helping us to ensure that we are providing support, protecting the privacy of our students, and helping us to move forward with creating that safe, supportive, and inclusive environments for our students. And then just wanted to share again that we feel we're quite honored that the Diversity Center has selected the County Office of Education as the Organization of the Year, and will be celebrated at the gala. Hopefully some of you will be able to join us. We're very excited and honored by that, but we recognize really that it is this honor is really about many of the partnerships that we have with many organizations to be able to support our students. And really, this is just us standing for our students, and it's part of what we care about. It's our why. It's what we stand for, and we feel very humbled by this honor, and grateful to the Diversity Center, which has been absolutely a wonderful organization to partner with in a variety of different efforts. Thank you. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Sure.
About absenteeism, are there any studies being connected to teachers actually retiring, new teachers coming in, or non-qualified teachers? Is there any kind of looking at that?
You know, I don't know if there is a, let's say, a causal relationship or correlation that I could speak to right off the bat, but there absolutely is a significant number or I should say that it has become more and more difficult for our schools to be able to find qualified teachers and across the board. And we have gotten more tools from the state to be able to bring in teachers who have less experience because the need is so great. But that does mean that in many cases there are classrooms with folks that are have a long way to go to complete their credentialing. And so part of our work, I think, one is to continue to support districts to be able to really look at our effort to bring people here, and of course, the cost of living here is a big barrier for many folks, and to support those teachers to create, using our educator pipeline, to figure out how we can support folks to be able to get. One is to bring them, to get them to be thinking about education, to be able to participate in and enroll in programs that are going to further them become teachers or counselors, and increase the numbers of staff that are appropriately qualified for the classes that they're teaching. But I have to say that this is another area of equity where students with higher numbers of families who come from socioeconomically disadvantaged families or higher numbers of Latino students are more likely to have a teacher who is not fully credentialed. And so part of our efforts is, one, bring awareness to this, bring resources and support to bring in more folks, and then help them to get to become properly and fully credentialed to be able to, so that our students have the very best teachers and support staff that they need.
As the County Office of Education, are we thinking, as a County Office of Education, are we looking at programs that we can offer to the districts that have many of these teachers the opportunity to gain some of what they need here?
Yes. In fact, in our Ed Services Department, we have launched a educator pipeline this year. It's in the early phases where we're really looking to understand the different parts of the challenge and how we can best support. We think that we have to start early in high school with students who are taking education classes for them to start thinking about going into education, for example, supporting students and looking at paid internships for students after high school. So that they can get experience in the classroom like I did when I was in college. I was going to be a chemist until I got into the classroom and just enjoyed it so much. I had to make that tough call to my dad to let him know that I didn't want to be a chemist anymore. I wanted to be in the classroom. And so giving that exposure to students, young people, to be able to start thinking about that, creating job opportunities, and also lowering the obstacles or the challenges when it comes to costs, the time, the programs. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to pursue this as a career. And so part of our work, and I think part of what we're hoping to develop, are looking at a variety of support services, including a website that clarifies how to wherever you are, we can get you on ramp you into this pipeline, get you information, get you resources, get you financial aid, put you in a program where you're getting paid to learn and to participate, and to really streamline this pipeline so that people can get into education as quickly as possible. We see this as a long-term commitment that will require bringing in partners and start as early as possible. But I think that's what's going to take. The numbers of people that are leaving the profession and continues to grow, and the challenges of bringing people to Santa Cruz County
continue to increase or are very difficult because of the cost of living. And so working together and building this pipeline, I think is a big project for us, and we'll be able to hopefully report to you on what how that's looking in the next few months.
And our new teacher project continues the new teachers coming into our county.
Absolutely, it's growing and it's absolutely a wonderful. In fact, using the new teacher project as a model for support for people who are not quite, they're not, they don't qualify for the new teacher project, but being able to create a mentoring and support system for those who are a little bit, before they even get started and to get that kind of support is actually one of the things that we're looking at as a model. But it is going to take an investment in some resources, and also we're looking at grants that we're hoping that can help us. Lots of exciting agenda items for the future, President.
All right, thank you. Trustees, now it's time for our trustee reports. I'm going to report that I did a little bit of committee work and agenda meeting and thought a lot about the stuff I learned that I mentioned last time at the CCBE conference. And part of that was about programs that help bring new teachers in. And I'm trying to follow up on some of the contacts I made at that conference. That's pretty much my report. So let's just go down the line. You don't mind, Sue.
My ducks in a row here. On Monday night, 6:30, in this room or in the tech room, I don't know which, will be the County School Boards Association meeting. We meet every 2 months or so, and I urge you to come. I don't know, I don't think it's going to be handled with Zoom. It's going to be an in-person, which is very valuable, but there are delegates from all the districts who show up, and there's a good discussion going on.
And sorry to interrupt, Sue, I just want to also clarify too, that will be, yes, here, or reiterate, that will be here in the tech center on Monday.
Excellent, okay. I urge you to come. It's just a very supportive group, and we've been in existence for years now, and it really has created quite conversations between districts and finding some things that unify us or that's different. But you get to know your fellow districts. Move-in it has been done up at UC. It was very exciting, especially the one college that was supposed to open all of its new buildings had a little difficulty. That was finished today. I attended the agenda meeting, and then also the CSBA roadshow, and I've given Bruce a sheet that they passed out. I was the only one from here asking for information of what our goals or what we would like to see, and information about our county office to filter into CSBA. And I don't know if I need to, but overall, the districts that were there brought up that they are being killed by the reporting and accountability that is being required by each district, and especially the smalls. The superintendent is also the principal, and it's very, very difficult on them not to be in a position where they are schooling versus reporting. And I know this is brought up a lot with our legislators, but we need to push it, since I think by next year there won't be anyone, legislators that were in on the formation of LCAP and LCFF. And so we're headed towards what is called categorical funding that is presented to us, but with stipulations, reporting, whatever, whereas LCFF, they were trying to give local control to the districts, and it is disappearing. let's see. It was really a good meeting. This is the road show. They go around the state and talk about all that's going on. But I would say that, and they went over teleconferencing and, you have any questions? You can kind of ask me, but, okay, yes,
I also
did.
attended, but I didn't see you.
I came in the back. I sat down. Yeah, somebody said you were there and I went, where?
I know, I ran out when it ended at 7.
Okay.
It was a long onboarding day, so thank you to COE staff.
No, and it did, and you did listen to the teleconferencing and what we have to do to be able to continue this, which is good. It's just that there are steps, so. And they really pushed advocacy with our legislators, which they've been doing for quite a bit. And that it is critical that we establish and have a relationship with our legislators so that they know us by name. And the legislators will act on what they hear from us. They really will. But if it's crickets, they think they're doing just fine. So anyway, sorry to take up so much time.
And then before we move on, I just want to remind trustees to use their mic. We do have a Zoom participant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I also attended the CSBA roadshow. I will briefly, I guess I'll mention some of the teleconferencing options. So there has always been the traditional teleconferencing where notice must be posted at a location that is freely accessible to the public 72 hours before a regular meeting. So that also, like if you're at a hotel, it's out of the city, it's very difficult, and you'll be trying to post in the hotel lobby that you'll be there, and so it's that's still intact, that's still an option, but the legislature gave some extra options and due to COVID. So let me see. So there are some emergency circumstances where an individual board member the board must approve their request to appear remotely, and it can't be used more than 20% of the regular meetings or more than 3 consecutive months. And the requesting member must notify the board as soon as possible, so it's pretty strict in its application. And then there's also a just cause that can be used. It's a separate process that can be used 2 times per year by board members who have a dependent caregiving need requiring them to appear remotely, has a contagious illness, that's like a broad just contagious illness preventing them from attending in person, has needs relating to a physical or mental disability that can otherwise be accommodated, or is traveling on official business on the board. But that is limited to 2 times per year. And then, must use audio and visual technology at all times, and all votes taken during that must be by roll call. So there are a few different options, but they're all pretty limited. The legislature is really encouraging going back to in person as much as possible and to return to this kind of modality. So yes, that was some of that, along with someone at the meeting wanting some more designation between big districts and small districts, just because of the amount of reporting that's being required, and when the only administrator is like the principal, and it's very, very hard to navigate all of this, all of the bureaucracy involved. Trying to get that designation, that's what they kind of suggested to the CSBA. So yeah, that's a little bit more from CSBA. I also attended the Queer, Trans, and Allied Student Summit of the Central Coast on September 30th. That was really amazing to see a bunch of students from not only Santa Cruz County, but also Monterey County. Really big turnout. I thought it was amazing. We saw a lot of, the Diversity Center was there tabling. The Cabrillo College was tabling. I believe UCSC was also tabling, Cantu Career Center. So there were a lot of resources going around, and it was really great to see students being empowered. So yeah, and then I've also been onboarded over the past month, and I'll continue to be. And I'll need to get on some committees, or committees. So yeah, that's all for me.
I will start with the 12th. There was, well, I want to show my appreciation for the COE all meeting, and the fact that it's still remote makes it easy to join, even when I can't make the drive down, at least I can listen. And it's good, I enjoy hearing from staff, and then seeing, and I specifically like the breakout rooms. It's just, I don't know, a good opportunity to sit down, to dialogue, to digest, and talk to different colleagues. So definitely enjoyed it, attended this month's COE on the 12th. And on the 17th, earlier this week, also PVUSD had their state of their district in Watsonville. So I attended there. And again, the topic of conversation, one of the main points that they talked about was just declining enrollment. They mentioned 5 years. In the past 5 years, it's gone down 26%, which is we're talking about the biggest district in our county. So it's a lot of lots of students there, and it's a trend that we continue to observe and expect. Not only there but across the county as well. So got to hear the interim superintendent Scheckman speak. Lots of new leadership there. Getting to meet some of them as well. Was good. I enjoyed it. That's my report.
We had some rescheduling of charter committee meetings, but I think we're diving into that next week. So looking forward to that. Otherwise, I don't really have much to report. I think this is an exciting board meeting. I'm really excited about our new board members. It's great. It's really good stuff, and we're all excited you're here. But that's all I have this month.
Thanks.
I don't have much to report, but I do want to welcome new trustee Estrada and student trustee Alvarez.
Thanks.
Okay, I don't have too much to report. I read some articles in Ed Week about test scores, and I've been admitted to the COE table at the Diversity Center Gala, which is this Saturday night. And if there are any empty chairs at that table, some of you might like to attend.
Apparently there aren't.
Yeah.
I'll be there. Thanks. Trustees, I was actually reminded by some of your comments that our board governance handbook, which we adopted a couple months ago, says that we will be finding ways to onboard new members of the board in addition to what they're getting from staff. And we've had this idea of mentoring for new members. And so what I would like is for trustees to think about, are you interested in being a buddy or a mentor for either of our new trustees? Think about it and let me know, and we'll probably bring that back next time. So, and to the new trustees, obviously, this is totally cool that you're here, and I just want to just second Ed's comment on that, and others too, that we're really pleased to have both of you with us, and encourage you to reach out to the rest of us, ask questions. There's plenty of stuff that happens here that you can just go, what? And so just, you're allowed to ask questions and get the information that you need. So I encourage you to do that. Welcome.
Student trustee Alvarez is ready for it.
Oh, yes, yeah, and we have one more trustee report. Trustee Alvarez.
Yeah, I'd like to report on why and what I would like to do. I want to bring equity for students and teachers. Also, for something I actually wanted to touch on that I didn't get to is how would I like to reach to my peers in my districts. I'd like to be able to do a PVUSD at first, PVUSD survey asking what issues that they are facing in their schools, whether it be safety concerns, enough well-trained teachers, which I think is a big one, because I think that leads, from personal experience, I think that leads to students not showing up to school, which also increases the chronic absenteeism that was referenced before. So I think that's a big one, and I'm glad that there's gonna be a program or some way to get teachers. It's comforting to know. Also, courses offered at schools that might not be in certain schools, lack of resources, also lack of sports in certain schools. That's also a big one I've seen. Also, and how I plan to stay connected with other student trustees. I think it's something we're currently working on, but I do want to get in contact with other student trustees, because I know I'm very like inexperienced to this, so I'd like to know what they have done, how they did it. So I think being able to find a way to communicate with them is really important to me, whether it be like once a month on Zoom, is something I'd really like to be able to help me going forward as a new student trustee. That'd be all.
Could we share the, in private, could you send us their telephone numbers or contacts so that we might be able to communicate with them during the upcoming month?
To Oscar's contact information?
Yeah, to our new member.
Oh, okay, oh, yeah.
Actually, we should probably have a new roster.
Yes,
That has been recreated, so I will share that.
thank you.
Share a few dates
Yes.
that are on here, if that's okay. I forgot to include in my report just a few dates that may be of interest to you. College and Career Night at Cabrillo College on October 23rd. We'll have flu shots at Sequoia on October 25th. We'll be celebrating Dia de los Muertos in the Wassamal Plaza the evening of October 27th. And we'll have a potluck here on October 31st for Halloween. And also our Student Thanksgiving Craft Fair on November 8th. And Command and Response Training, which is on November 9th for the school districts that are signed up for that.
Good. Thanks, and this board will be back here on November 16th. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.